Get started with the webinar today. Appreciate you all attending. We're going to talk about the dual protection lab coat technology that was developed by Milliken. Westex by Milliken is being manufactured and sold by Workrite Uniform Company. I am Mark Sainer, our technical manager here at Workrite, and joining me today is going to be Warren Gerhardt. He's a senior research chemist at Milliken and Company that's been very involved with the new lab coat, and so we're going to get some thoughts from him as well as we go through the treatment today. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about some common laboratory hazards. We'll talk a little bit about what an ideal lab coat is, the Nomex lab coat and the value of it being made out of that material, and then really get into the good stuff about the new dual protection lab coat technology that we're talking today. So some of the common laboratory hazards you can see here, there's a long list of all the different hazards that might be found in laboratories. But there's a couple of them, chemical hazards and fire explosion hazards, that seem to be more common. And Warren, if hopefully we got all hooked up right, if you could just tell us a little bit about what are some of the common chemical hazards that might be found in a laboratory, as well as some of the fire hazards.
Thank you, Mark. So some of the textbook chemical classes you would expect any average lab worker to come across at some point in the day or in their career would be strong acids and bases, oxidizers, reducing agents. In many cases in organic labs, you'd also have issues with dermal penetrants, classic case here being a DMSO. And from a flammability standpoint, common fire hazard that is a frequent accident in university labs would be a solvent spill near an open flame or another heat source. And really, that's what we're trying to target today. Okay,
very good. And I would guess, Warren, that when they're working with these kind of hazardous chemicals, that the potential for a spill, or in the case of the accident at UCLA where the lab researcher was transferring the pyrophoric material in a syringe that came apart, those kind of things, although they're not supposed to happen and there's protocols in place, they do happen, and you know, you want to be prepared so that the researcher doesn't get injured, correct?
Absolutely. Like any fire situation, any FR gear is designed to really give the user or wearer time to think for a second and try to get into a safer situation.
Very good. Okay. So as you can see in these illustrations here, some pictures of some pretty bad-looking burns, chemical burns, thermal burns. Obviously, these are the types of things that we'd like to avoid, and having on a flame-resistant or a chemical splash repellent type lab coat can certainly minimize the effects and try to avoid these kind of situations from happening. So what would be considered an ideal lab coat? As Warren said, you have these fire and these chemical hazards available in most laboratories, so you want to have a lab coat that is flame resistant. It's going to resist igniting. You're going to want a coat that is chemical resistant. It's going to be able to repel some of the common corrosives, acids, oxidizers, reducers that he mentioned. But in addition to that, it's got to be comfortable, and for a couple of reasons. One is, you know, you want the researchers to feel good during the day. They don't want to be hot and uncomfortable because they're working in an environment where they're wearing a coat that doesn't breathe. But also you want them to be in compliance. If the rule is to wear a lab coat when you're working in a certain situation, you don't want them to think, oh, I've done this 100 times, that coat's uncomfortable, I won't do it this time. Or you don't want them to have to remember that, oh, I'm in this situation, I need to wear this lab coat. I'm in that situation, I need to wear a different lab coat, or I need to put on a secondary layer, those types of things. So being comfortable and compliant and making it so that they'll easily be in compliance with a lab coat they can wear all day long is very important. So we made this lab coat out of a Nomex base fabric, and we did that for a specific reason. Number one is it is flame resistant. It does allow the researcher to work in situations where they can be around flammable materials. It doesn't, it's not going to ignite and catch on fire. And that's partially proven by the fact that it is certified to the NFPA flash fire standard. It is UL certified to that standard, which is designed for fabrics that will resist ignition. Here's an example of a video showing the difference between a Nomex lab coat and a polycotton lab coat, so you can see how they're going to be exposed to flames and what the difference results you'll see. They're both being exposed to a 3-second exposure. The one on the right, the polycotton, you can see how it's aggressively burning, it's dripping, it's melting, and then the one on the left, the Nomex one, self-extinguishes very quickly. And when you look at the body burn exposure, or the body burn degree when these two are run, you look at the Nomex lab coat, and you're down into the very low percentages, 10% or slightly above for that particular lab coat. Not much body burn exposure because of the self-ignition, self-ignite or self-extinguishing characteristic of that lab coat. In contrast, you look at the polycotton one, and now you're well over 50% body burn in this exposure, and it's only going to get worse because it's not going to go out until you get it off somebody. You get into one of the showers or whatever it might be, but it's just a bad situation. And the Nomex material gives you a much better advantage to avoid significant burn injury. The other thing that Nomex is it's very resistant to degrading when exposed to chemicals. You can see here's a list of some acids that have been tested, and it has very minimal effect on its break strength after exposure, as well as some oxidizers and reducing agents. There are other flame-resistant materials that can be used in lab coats that are treated, but they often can have issues when they're exposed to these oxidizing agents that can render the FR properties useless. So the Nomex product is extremely good because of its fire protection and its resistance to degrading when exposed to these chemicals. The next piece, which is the really exciting piece, is talking about the new technology, the Shield CXP technology, which provides the chemical splash-resistant repellency properties of this new. When you look at most of the lab coats and or secondary garments that are used for chemical splash protection, they're not flame resistant. That means they will help with the chemical repellency, but if they're exposed to an open flame or a fire of sorts, they're going to ignite, catch on fire, and that is obviously not something you want to have happen. So that's not good if you're in a situation where a fire hazard is present. The other problems are typically they don't breathe. They may not cover the entire body. If you're wearing a vest version like shown here, it does not cover the arms. It also is, it's a second layer. It's hard to move in. And as I said earlier, you have to remember to put it on when you need it. So having a lab coat that has it filled in so you don't have to get into that mode of remembering when to wear it and when not to wear it is a big advantage. So they don't breathe, they don't necessarily cover the entire body, motion restriction, you got to remember to wear all things that are negative about wearing these other types of chemical splash garments. The Shield technology itself will shed small amounts of these liquid chemicals that might be inadvertently splashed or dropped onto the lab coat, which is a fairly common occurrence. It prevents that wicking through the fabric, so it gives you that dual hazard protection, both flame resistant and chemical splash protection. Comfortable with the touch, soft to the feel. It's very lightweight, only 4.5 ounce fabric, and it's really breathable, just like regular Nomex 3A fabric without the technology. It's got close to 200 cubic feet per minute air permeability capability, so it's very breathable, lightweight, and comfortable. Plus, obviously, the most important thing is it gives you that dual hazard protection. I'm going to show a quick video here of how the product works. screen here real quick to show the video because it shows much better if we go this way. So we'll pull up the video here.
Workrite Uniform Company is excited to introduce a revolutionary new lab coat made from flame-resistant Nomex 3A with Westex Shield CXP, a proprietary chemical splash protective finish. As a result of the wide variety of chemicals used in laboratories, injuries from fire and inadvertent chemical splash hazards are common, and this new lab coat helps protect against both by being flame-resistant and chemical splash protective. See how this commonly used solution of sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide pools on the surface of Shield CXP, while it quickly eats through a FR lab coat fabric. And in this demonstration, you can see how the various liquid chemicals easily penetrate through the current fabric. But when they're released onto Shield CXP, the liquids quickly roll off the fabric without penetrating it. This new lab coat gives you the breathable comfort and feel of a regular lab coat with the added safety of flame resistance and chemical splash protection. Workrite FRCP lab coats made with Westex Shield CXP are truly the next generation of lab coats.
So you can see in that video how well the Shield technology worked, particularly in that first clip where it showed the sulfuric acid solution being poured on top of the fabric on the beaker, where it just pooled and sat there and did nothing, no penetration, versus the regular fabric without it just burned right through very quickly. So it's amazing how well it'll shed and resist wicking through of those kinds of chemicals. Now here's a list of the different chemicals that have been tested using the Shield CXP, and you can see the ratings on them. That top group with the bars, they're rated in either an A or a B type rating, which is a pass. And so, Warren, why were these particular chemicals used as the ones to be the test samples for the Shield CXP?
So, Mark, this list captures the bulk of the chemicals and solvents that you would find in either a university or an industrial lab. So to accommodate the chemicals that are not present on this list, we try to do our best to select some representative solvents from all the distinct classes. So in general, pretty much everything here is covered. And if it's not, in most cases, one of these chemicals can act as a proxy, and you would expect similar performance from a similar agent.
Great. And, when I look at the list, I look at those, particularly the corrosive chemicals, the sulfuric acid and hydrochloric acid and nitric acid. There's some nasty stuff up there that can be poured on there, and including the Piranha solution, which is the sulfuric acid hydrogen peroxide mixture. So it's some pretty nasty stuff up there. The bottom part of the list, the nonpolars, when I look at those and did a little research on them, I found that most of them are considered an irritant, not good to get on your skin, but not something that's going to be as devastating as it would be if you spilled one of the acids or the strong corrosives on your skin as well. And you can see the rating that's on those, the A, B, C, and D ratings, A and B being a pass, C and D being a failure. And when we look at what those ratings mean, Warren, can you explain a little bit how this test is run and what these results mean?
Not a problem. So let me just give the evolution of it. There was a variety of tests out there from a bunch of different organizations. We went with the AATCC. I'm sorry, I said that. We went with the 193 test. And the reason for this was from both a practical and demonstrable improvement. The original test evaluated the efficacy of protective surfaces exposed to various water-alcohol ratios. In this case, we modified the test we stuck with the same grading system, but as well as looking at water-alcohol ratios, we looked at other aqueous solutions as well as neat solvents. So the grading system is done by placing a drop on the fabric and observing it and its behavior for 10 seconds. So an A or a B is the drop standing on top or mildly wetting In both cases, though, you really have zero penetration across the fabric. I'd like to highlight also, in several cases, a C or D rating, which is truly a failure. In some cases, you will get wetting, but you still do not get penetration. And as I said earlier, in the event of a serious incident, time is critical. So if we can still keep that flammable liquid from penetrating all the way through, getting to the more flammable clothes beneath you, that's still an improvement. And overall, you're going to find a markedly improved level of protection versus a regular lab coat or even a standard FR lab coat.
Great, Warren. One of the things that he mentioned was the time factor involved, and although 10 seconds doesn't seem like a long time, if you spill something on yourself, and the main protocol would be you got to take it off, take your lab coat off. So you think about 10 seconds. You spill on yourself, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. 10 seconds can be quite a long time, so it gives you a nice buffer in there to get it off. Obviously, the A's and B's are going to repel, as you saw in the video, and they're going to roll right off almost immediately. And even as Warren said, some of the C's, particularly the C's, you're going to get some amount of it that's going to roll off, some that's going to start to penetrate through, but you have a little bit of time there. So we went really conservative. A's and B's are passes, C's and D's are failures, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't misrepresenting anything. So I came up with a few common questions that I get asked when I talk to people about these, and we'll see if we can get some answers to those. So a common question is, I use non-polar solvents like you saw on the list. So what about those? And how would we address that, Warren, when people ask that question?
Well, the challenge with non-polar solvents is that they have an extremely high spreading parameter. So regardless of your protective surface, there's essentially nothing that can stop that spreading effect. And again, this automatically gives them a D rating. So my response would be, this is no worse than any other lab coat out there. In a variety of cases, you still prevent or slow penetration. So, and given the other broad level protection you get from all the other classes of chemicals out there, this is still a significant upgrade.
That's exactly right. Although it doesn't, the Shield CXP doesn't repel everything, including these non-polars, it does repel a long list of nasty stuff. So it's definitely a lot better than what's typically being worn out there, and it does give you a little bit of a buffer zone there. So that's cool. Thanks, Warren. So next, so what people ask me, what do I do after I splash a chemical on their coat? What would be the typical advice to them, Warren?
Well, ideally, it will shed off, and you have little to no concern. If you are concerned about residuals or any minor hangers-on, if it doesn't evaporate in the time you're comfortable with, it can be laundered like any other piece of apparel or garment. If you have a specific concern, given the nature of the work you do in your lab, it would probably be best to defer to whatever safety protocols you have in place at your institution.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm sure all the labs have protocols on what to do in case of a splash. As Warren said, on the Shield CXP, it's going to mostly repel off. You'll have, maybe have some amount of residue that could evaporate quickly, but I think that it's obviously an upgrade, and follow your protocols and do what's best for your situation. And lastly, you mentioned laundering. What about laundering? Does it affect the repellency? How long will this technology last on it through a laundry process?
So, since we're relying on the FR properties of the Nomex, what we did was the Nomex has been encapsulated with this protective finish. Like any finish, over time and laundering through just abrasion, it will slowly wear away. But we've shown excellent performance out to 50 industrial laundries, and significant performance still out to 100. I want to stress there that this is industrial laundering, one of those extreme severe conditions that a laundering procedure will have. In practice, most labs will use a simple home laundry procedure, and in general, lab coats are not washed excessively. In my time in grad school, I maybe washed my lab coat one time over 4 to 5 years. And the ideal goal here is, since we're shedding off many of these chemicals, laundering, you wouldn't be expected to happen too often. So the life of this garment could realistically go out easily to 10 years.
Yeah, that's also what I've heard from folks that are buying the lab coats. They say, yeah, we don't wash them very often, once or twice a year, maybe up to 5 times a year, and if it's good for 50 industrial laundering, that's 10 years based on that. So, again, it can have some effect if you're careful about it. If you follow the rules, follow the laundry instructions, you're going to get a long life out of this particular garment. So let's kind of do a little review on the comfort part of it. We talked about it being lightweight. It's only 4.5 ounce fabric, so it's very lightweight. It's surprisingly soft and supple to the feel. If people are familiar with Nomex, sometimes they think of it as being a little stiff, a little harsh, but this particular fabric has soft properties to it, so it feels very comfortable. And as I mentioned, very air permeable. You've got almost 200 cubic feet per minute air permeability. So what is the ideal lab coat? As we said, flame resistant. That's what you get with your Nomex 3A. Chemical resistant. That's what you get with your Shield CXP. And comfortable, the properties we just talked about. So I've got another video that shows some of the features of the particular lab coat that I'd like to share. So let's run this one.
Workbright Uniform Company is proud to introduce its new FRCP lab coat, an innovation that offers both flame resistance and chemical splash protection. Like all Workbright FR lab coats, the new coat is made from lightweight, comfortable flame-resistant Nomex 3A fabric, but it also features Westex Shield CXP, a proprietary finish that gives it the ability to protect against inadvertent chemical splash as well. With a soft feel, breathable weave, pocket flaps, knit cuffs, splash-resistant pass-throughs, styles for both men and women, and a distinct black collar to indicate chemical splash protection, Workbright FR's new lab coat offers an unprecedented combination of safety, comfort, and practicality. Contact Workbright Uniform today and experience the difference of simultaneous protection against multiple hazards.
Okay, so that gives you some of the ideas of some of the features that the coat has that might be beneficial to you. Now, I did understand that there might be a few people that, for some reason, the video is not coming through. Could be your flash player. It seems to be working on our end and with our people that are watching it as well. But if you have a problem, let us know, and we can get those videos to you after the fact. So let's talk about comparing some of the common lab coats that are out there. You've got the Workbright FRCP, you've got non-FR, you've got some that are FR only, and you've got some that are chemical splash only. And if you look at the properties of garment ignition, obviously the FRCP and the FR accomplish that where the others don't. If you look at the inadvertent chemical splash, the chem splash only versions in the CP work, breathability, a lot of them are breathable other than the chem splash only because it's non-permeable. Soft and comfortable, that's a property that you can find on some. Lightweight, typically most of them are pretty lightweight. Durability, the Nomex is an extremely durable fabric. It's got some Kevlar in it which adds to the durability, so it's a very strong, durable type fabric. And the ability to cover 2 hazards with one coat. Pretty much the winner of the day is the Workbright FRCP because it covers all those key properties that might be important to somebody wearing a lab coat. So, reviewing all the features, benefits of the FRCP lab coat, dual hazard protection we talked about, lightweight, breathable, soft and comfortable. One of the things we did do is we did put a black collar and a unique logo on the back so you can easily differentiate it from a standard FR lab coat that's out there. You want to know which ones are FR and which ones are FRCP. We do have knit cuffs on these. They are FR. They're not CP, but if you're working with chemicals that you don't want to get on your skin, you should be wearing gloves that'll cover you. And we've found that there's a preference for having the knit cuff because now you don't have that open cuff design that materials can go down through, or as you're working on the work tables, your cuff isn't going to catch on something and knock it over. So that's been a nice feature, as well as you don't have to worry about sleeve length because it's going to fit right up to the wrist and hold itself there. We do have pocket flaps on the two lower pockets. That's to avoid any of the liquids that are being cooling up inside your pockets. We didn't want that to happen, so we wanted them to run off nicely. And we do have men's and women's styles. They do have a different fit to them. We know there's a lot of women that work in the laboratory, so we want to have a fit that would be designed for women. So we have both men's and women's styles. And lastly, I just wanted to run another quick video with Craig Merlick, who's an associate professor of chemistry at UCLA, and he's a lab safety guy. So I wanted to just run a quick clip on what he had to say about this lab.
My name is Craig Merlick. I'm an associate professor of chemistry at UCLA. So I've been a professor here at UCLA for 27 years, and I've always had a long-standing interest in safety, besides being the chair of the safety committee for the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. I'm also the chair of the campus-wide chemical and physical safety committee, and I also serve on the safety oversight committee for the campus as a whole. A lab coat plays a very important role in laboratory safety. The principal action the lab coat provides is a barrier between the researcher and chemicals. But they don't provide protection against liquid materials. In particular, there's not a great level of splash protection, and also the current lab coats wick chemicals, and that's a hazard to the researchers. To provide splash protection, students can put on a chemical-resistant apron over the lab coats. The challenge, though, is that it's awkward having two layers of personal protective equipment on, and the second issue is that the aprons don't provide full coverage of the body for protection. This new coat is the latest generation, and I have seen experiments and have participated in experiments with this coat, and it is truly remarkable. The material does not wick chemicals. Chemicals instead just roll off it. In terms of chemical resistance, the new lab coat is also remarkable because it also is very resistant for corrosive chemicals. So the new coat would provide an amazing level of protection for researchers who might have very corrosive materials spilled on them. So I look at this new material as being absolutely transformative and a real game changer in terms of laboratory safety.
Well, I appreciate everybody joining us today. That ends the webinar, the information that we have available. I appreciate Warren joining me to answer a few questions from the technical side. This webinar will be posted on our website if you want to go back and review it at some point. And if you have any other questions or you weren't able to see the videos, please let us know so we can get you that information. Hopefully, we'll take care of that. If you have other questions, again, you can contact Workrite, and we'll help you out. We have ample fabric swatches that you can look at, a lot of different things that we can help on our website information and so forth. So, again, appreciate you coming on board and look forward to seeing you at a future webinar.